Free mind, you crazy for this. Soulful. It's like our responsibility to make us feel something. You know, to make people feel what we feeling. Hey, yo.
Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. I think that Reggie was just a little too loud. Let me try that again. Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. This is Comics Today, a show that we do on Wednesday to celebrate the best day of the week, that being New Comic Book Day. And I can tell you, I did not make it to an LCS because I don't really have an LCS anymore, but I have been reading some comics, including a really awesome indie comic that I'm going to tell you guys about a little bit later. As part of this show, we typically talk about some things that are in the news. And as part of that, we have a guest or two on to help me to make sense of things that I've been reading in the news and or just things that are on my mind. And tonight we will have two guests joining us to discuss some topics that are different yet potentially related. We'll see how far I'm able to go with connecting the dots, but shout out to both the guests that have agreed to appear on tonight's show. As part of this, we will go to the chat here momentarily, and I'll be looking to see what it is that you all may have picked up at your LCS earlier today. Again, this is a celebration of New Comic Book Day, so if you hit up the LCS and if you picked up a new comic and or a comic that is new to you, I want to hear about it. If you want to shout out your LCS, feel free to do that. And if you read something that was pretty solid that we may want to consider putting on the top of our reading stack, let us know that. Part of the reason why I do this is because there are a lot of people out there that will say that there is nothing good out to read right now. And I will tell you that they are wrong. They are wrong. There's a lot of great stuff out there, and we use this show to highlight some of those really awesome new comics that folks may want to check out so that they can stop saying there's no good stuff out there. All right, let me go to the chat here real quick and see. I do have to apologize. I do have to start off with a note of apology for my dirty face. My face is dirty. It shall be clean by the next time I show up and do a live stream. Also, as a reminder, this show will be rebroadcast as part of a podcast. We release a new episode of the podcast every single Monday around 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And my brother Rizal is the one that consistently has been showing up to put in that work to release the podcast to you guys. And I think we have a robust number of downloads every single week. And fingers crossed that this week will be the same. So many great stories being written in comics. There is no doubt about it, sir. I did an interview last night. With somebody that was interested in talking about Swoldier publishing. So I spent some time, it could have been an hour, spend some time talking about what it is that we are trying to do. And that was one of the things that we discussed. Someone asked the question of like, why now? And I'm like, well, why not now? It's the golden age of comics, man. There is so much amazing stuff that is happening right now. And a lot of it is indie stuff. And it's really cool. And you have to be inspired by that. Also, with the pandemic, in my opinion, if you enter into the pandemic, you should have emerged on the other side with a new skill or something, because we were sheltering in place for a very long time. And so the Swoldier publishing, isolation, and all the other crazy stuff that we are doing in many ways is a reflection of all the stuff that we did in our free time during the pandemic. Grow it like a goatee and do a live stream. I didn't know where that was going. For years and years, I had a beard and or a goatee, and I let it go several years ago. And the wife actually hates facial hair, so I don't grow it back. I let go of the goatee and the beard before I met the wife, and then she also let it be known that beards and facial hair wasn't her jam. And I prefer kisses. I honestly prefer kisses to facial hair. So there will be no facial hair. Herman, how you doing, brother? Herman, he said he picked up Batman 125, Strange Academy, Amazing Spider-Man, Time Before Time, and also Black Panther. That's what's up. So if you guys did manage to pick up some comics at the LCSs today, let us know what it is you picked up. Danger says, just got a new to me book, picked up Secret Defenders 12, the newsstand, a 9.8 CGC, awesome, pristine Thanos cover. Or is that Prism? Prism or Pristine? One or the other. I guess it's Prism. Very good. Congrats to you, brother. Scrolling. Summertime is the time to put down the razor for a few weeks. Let the facial hair. Yeah, I respect it. I use clippers, so I don't have razor burn. I use clippers. If I were to use a razor on the skin, it would be ungood. And that is a technical term. It is a technical term. Scrolling through Happy Wife, hey, check this out. Somebody's wife reached out to me recently and asked me to do something for them. And I did it. And then she sent me a message saying that I was the best. And in my head, I said, happy wife, happy life, even if it's not my wife, because all wives, I think, secretly know one another. So if I can do good for somebody else's wife and make her happy, it'll all come back around, because that's how it works. Dave, how you doing, brother? He said he picked up The Boys trade paperback. That's what's up. Is it anything like the movie or the show? Is it anything like that? I've never really read The Boys, and I am curious. If it matches up. Giving Gang, how you doing? It is good to see you, brother. Anders, it is good to see you. Scrolling. Anders was all over the new coin. If you guys haven't seen this coin on the Discord server or on Instagram, treat yourself. We have a new Comic Book Soldier Gibbon Gang challenge coin. Oh, I've wanted to do this for about 3 years. And again, so you have to do these projects that lend themselves to other projects. And I made some magic happen and was able to get the challenge coin. It's dope. It is dope. Treat yourself. Check it out if you get a chance. So I want to give a shout out to speaking of challenge coins, because challenge coins are a military thing, and that gives me a perfect segue into talking about a 9-year veteran, 9-year veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps. He reached out to me a few weeks ago. Somehow or another, his email got by me. I then remembered the email, saw it, responded. This guy's name is Giles. Giles Clark is the founder behind a new publisher. It is Uncharted Wilderness Studios out of LA. It is a comic book publisher, veteran owned. As I mentioned, he has a new comic that he sent me and gave me a chance to read it. And I think it was Mark. That set me up. And he set me up because he asked me a question about horror westerns, whether I ever saw them coming back. I think it was him. And I said, absolutely not. Horror westerns are just dead. And then Isolation comes along, which has a little horror western feel to it. And then several other comics come along that are also horror westerns or have some elements of that in there. And Rougarou, I do believe that is how you pronounce this. This is the first cover. This is the first cover from Uncharted Wilderness Studios, and as you can see, it is a horror western. I'm not going to go into all the details of this thing, but I read it. And it is good. It is honestly a good story that is being told by this U.S. Marine veteran. This book is actually going to, I do believe, be included in the Diamond Previews magazine July 22nd. It is going to be in LCSs come September and October, in time for Halloween. If you have any interest in supporting a veteran, supporting an indie publisher, supporting horror westerns as a genre, Rougarou is what you want to check out. And trust me when I tell you, it is a good read. I was honestly entertained while I was reading it. The art is different. The color palettes are different. Rougarou, check it out because I enjoyed it. And it's got all kinds of elements here on this cover. But I do believe it's Nosferatu. I do believe. I don't know. I don't know. Definitely, you can see a little bit of it here. All will be revealed in issue 2, which I'm looking forward to actually picking up. So there you go. That was the thing that I wanted to cover off there. The other thing, I was reading a good horror Western recently by Image. The name escapes me. Man, is it, there was American Vampire, like 1942 or 1943. I mean, as soon as I made that on-air statement about horror Westerns, it was like a week later, 2 weeks later at the most, it was everywhere I looked, I saw a horror Western, and they were honestly good. They were good reads. So I feel like Mark set me up. I really do. I think that he knew that it was coming. Here it is. Image has a book called Two Moons. That is a Western Civil War horror book. It is a genre. It is a genre. So, Comic Noob, to answer your question, Rougarou from Uncharted Wilderness Studios will be in Previews magazine come July 22nd. If you are interested in picking it up, I would definitely encourage you to have a conversation with your LCS, make them aware of the title, make them aware that you're interested in it, and allow them to go ahead and place the order. It's my understanding July 22nd Previews, it will be in there. The book will be shipping in the September-October shipping window. That is my story, and that is what I'm sticking to. If anybody needs any more information, let me know, and I will put you in touch with the publisher, and you twos can have it out. All right. Yeah, The Boys Show is awesome. Neither read the book, though, says Liger King. I want to read the book. I feel like I should read it because the show is amazing. There's a spinoff of Stranger Things that has been greenlit by Netflix. Super pumped about that one too. All right. One other thing that I want to get to before I get into our major topic tonight, I want to give a shout out to my friends over at MySlabs. I was on their Instagram earlier today, and I took note of something that kind of captured my attention. And it is a book that a lot of people want. It is Incredible Hulk issue number 181, a fantastic book that a lot of people either, there's a lot of people that have it in their collection, but there are probably many more that want it in their collection. Now, what caught my attention was the fact that this book sold for $5,353, which is below the current FMV according to Go Collect, but only slightly above the most recent sale, which was $52.49 on eBay. Now, that caught my attention. The second thing that caught my attention was the fact that the seller, the person that sold this book, only paid 1%. They paid $53.53 to sell a $5,300 book. Now, if you do the math on that, I can't remember what eBay charges, but I want to say it may be like 8 to 10%. Do the math on that and see how much that previous person sold for. They had to pay for selling that book on eBay at $52.49 versus this person right here that managed to sell a $5,000 book and only paid $53. So again, it's 1% seller fees. Shout out to MySlabs for making some magic happen. I talk about the $4 million Amazing Fantasy 15 CGC 9.6 that was being sold on their website. I don't know if that book sold or not, but I sure would like to be friends with the person that owns it. But here's some other cool books that are available on MySlabs.com. I would not mind having that Hulk right there. That is a gorgeous book. That price, though, that price hurts my heart. But if you are a seller, you only pay 1% on that one when that book actually sells. So anyway, I thought this was a cool little thing that kind of captured my attention as I was scrolling through the Instagram. So I wanted to go ahead and share that with you guys. All right. So one other thing, speaking of big books going for big dollar amounts, this is something that also captured my attention that I wanted to talk a little bit about tonight. And it was the first appearance of Wonder Woman. The first appearance of Wonder Woman recently sold for a whopping $1.62 million. CGC certified comic book with the first appearance of Wonder Woman sales for that kind of money. And the article or the press release here, let me see if I can scroll down this thing. The All-Star Comics issue number 8 graded a CGC 9.4, sold for $1.62 million at Heritage Auctions on June 16th. I don't even want to know how much the seller fees were for that one. It is pretty darn high. It says this particular book significantly surpassed the previous record for this issue of $963,000, which it set in 2017. It also marked the eighth time a CGC comic sold for over $1 million this year. The list also includes Superman 1, Action Comics 1, Marvel Comics 1, Captain America 1, Fantastic Four 1, and 2 copies of Detective Comics issue number 27. It is nice. It is nice to see Wonder Woman getting some respect put on her name. Now, here's the funny thing. I don't know if this is the book that I held. I met some guys at a comic shop, but they owned a comic shop, but I met them at a con, and they recognized me a couple of years ago. And I was able to hold about $2 million worth of comics in my 2 hands. One of them was this book. And I don't know if this was the book. I'll be completely honest with you. I don't know if this was it. But I came this close. I came this close to millions of dollars worth of comics. So as you wrap your mind around a comic book selling for $1.62 million, let me back up. You might be struggling with wrapping your mind around a comic selling for that amount of money, given everything that is happening in the world right now. And what I mean by that is that we have inflation at crazy high levels. There are some people that are predicting that we are headed towards a recession. We have people struggling to put gas in the car, food on the table, yet comics are selling for $1.62 million, which is crazy. And so I wanted to invite my buddy on the show to talk a little bit about this and to help maybe this all makes sense. Maybe Doug, how you doing, brother?
It's been a day, but always good to talk to you and the rest of the community.
So the very first question that I have is how's Bentley?
He's at a animal hospital. We think he'll be fine, but he's going to cost us a lot of money because he decided when we were out on Saturday to eat about 20% of a blanket in our house. So
why do they do the things that they do? I really do just wish they could talk for just a little bit to explain why they do what they do, you know?
Yeah, I'd like to hear the explanation.
And
myself.
It's expensive. It's expensive. Like anytime one of my dogs gets hurt, Kelly's like, you should take him to the vet. I'm like, so let's see if they survive for the next couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Can they survive for the next couple of minutes? If so, they may be okay. But if they start to really, it's expensive. And I never did the vet insurance. And almost every time I go to the vet, I kick myself that I did not do it when they were puppies, But fingers crossed that Bentley is okay,
Thank you. I'm sure he'll be just fine.
Yeah, we need to sell some more copies of Isolation so that we can help offset that bill. But Doug, you heard, what'd you say?
I said new sales pitch for Isolation 1.
It's for Bentley. It's for a good cause, okay? He ate a blanket. Right. 75% of the blanket, is left over. 25, we got to replace that. But you heard the setup, right? Inflation is currently at 8.6%. Some people believe it to be a lot higher than that. But without a doubt, we have a comic, first appearance of Wonder Woman, selling for $1.62 million. There is no doubt about that. What do you make of this, right? Because those two things seem to be in opposition of one another. People struggling to put food on the table and put gas in the car, and some other thing, person, entity, organization is out here buying a comic for $1.62 million.
Yeah, I think it highlights a couple of facts. One is that in market, value is driven by supply and demand. But if people cannot spend money on something, that reduces demand technically,
Mm-hmm.
but that might not necessarily impact desire. Okay, just because some people cannot use the same resources to buy comics now doesn't necessarily mean, or it's not necessarily an indicator that the hobby is losing individuals. It means that people are being impacted right now.
Yep.
And the second thing, which is, you know, and this is more just for the economy in general, but I think it's being reflected right here. Inflation affects people differently, who are living at different financial levels.
Yep.
Okay, so it's going to affect the middle class in one way, who might have to tighten up, you know, spending less on comic books and vacations and things like that. People living at the you know, at the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum, it is really painful. There are people who are just trying to put food on the table, or get to work. But the reality is there are always individuals who are in a much better financial position that have both the knowledge and the means, because there's a lot of people with the knowledge, but not a lot of people with the means to see when a market takes a downturn in a way, which is what's happening overall in comics due to inflation. And they have the means to take advantage of that. You know, if I have $1 billion stock portfolio and it's lost 30% of its value on paper, and I don't have that portfolio. It's only worth 700 million, but it's not impacting me in my life. And in fact, I know now's a great time to buy and get a discount. So in 18 months, 24 months, however long it takes to get on the upswing, I can benefit from this. So
there was a lot in there. There was a lot in that response, and I think that it is wonderful. One of the first things that you talked about was supply and demand, the two forces that are at work. But you also spoke about like desirability, and even though people's inability to buy might decrease their demand or decrease the demand, that does not mean that the desire to own those books has gone away. It does not mean that suddenly people are fleeing the hobby. It doesn't mean that people should like abandon ship right now because this thing is going down. I think that's an important thing. And I read a comment earlier today. I think it was I think, Trev, I'm not putting that comment up. There was a comment from Phil Tastic that said something like, you know, there's a lot of people out there that are basically saying that the sky is falling. The sky is not falling. Values have come down in some respects, but there is still a lot of interest in the hobby. There are still, I mean, there's 70 people here on a Wednesday talking about comics. There is still a desire there. But to Trev's point and your point, there are people out there that, yes, they are affected by inflation, but how they're impacted is very different from how other people are impacted because they have so much money. Did I misstate anything in that last little part that you want to add to or correct?
No, I think you got it.
So the other thing is what we don't know is an individual buying that comic, right? Because you kind of talked about the fact that people having the means and the desire and the interest to buy it, but we're thinking about it from our point of view of people, of individuals. It may not even be a person. There was the possibility that it could be a corporation that is choosing to invest in comics because of everything that has happened over the last like 2.5 years. Would you agree with that? Is there anything that you would add to this notion that maybe it's not a person, maybe it's something else?
No, I think that's certainly possible because there are different types of investment groups. What what I'll add to that is I do think, as a comic collector, and someone who wants to see the hobby thrive, even in a time of inflation, the different market than I play in, which is those, really, really high end comics, because it really is a different market, high end collectibles. But when those comics sell for really high prices, that's actually a really good sign of the health of interest in that collectible market. And just as an example of this, and this isn't, like great research, but I wanted to spot check myself on something. And I picked 8 different collectibles, 4 of which I felt were strong, and 3 of which I felt were weak, and 1 I wasn't sure on.
Okay.
And I looked up what their highest sales were from 2021 until present. Coins, comic books, sports cards, and video games all were in record levels in the last year and a half. Which supported my thought that those are thriving markets. It doesn't mean they will be forever. I feel like coins and sport cards have a longer track record. Comics are catching up. Video games, we have no idea. And obviously with what's going on with WADA, I'm not going to assume anything. But it did support that. Then I looked up postage stamps, Beanie Babies, Lionel trains, which were the 3 that I felt the market was probably not strong for. Nowhere near, I mean, not even in the same vicinity of the record sales that happened 10 years, 20 years ago. So I do think when you see a, almost $2 million sale, that's record breaking, while one way to look at it is, wow, that's a sign kind of how out of whack sometimes the balance is of haves and have-nots in our current system. It's also a sign of strength in the hobby.
We are not Beanie Babies, and fingers crossed we will never become Beanie Babies. I wonder where VHS is. I mean, VHS is one of those sectors that I think is increasing, but definitely behind comics and coins and probably even Beanie Babies at this point. But they did have that record high sale of $75,000 not that long ago, which is kind of interesting to me. But the other thing that you touched on was that there are different sectors at play. Like there's different levels of collectibles, right? And I think a lot of normal people do normal stuff, but there is an upper echelon that plays around in that the vicinity of decimal points, and it moves at its own rhythm, and it moves in its own way, similar to how the different sectors within comics move, the different ages of comics, original art, other types of collectibles that are under the umbrella of comics. All these things move in different ways, but they all lend themselves to the overall health of the hobby, at least in my opinion. So the other fascinating thing that I saw is that this is it's nice to see Wonder Woman get a little respect and actually get up there with the big boys and have a decimal point associated with her first appearance as well, versus the Superman and the Batman and the Spider-Man. So I thought that was a really cool element. Do you see, and I want you to look into your crystal ball, do you see this changing anytime soon? Like inflation is still pretty high. We're potentially headed towards a recession. And some people say we're already in a recession. Who the heck knows? But do you see it slowing down in any way, shape, or form, or is it just too hard to tell?
It's really hard to tell. I would assume that inflation and its impact on the economy aren't going anywhere anytime soon. It's going to take a while. Yep. So I do feel that the impact it's having on more like books that are worth anywhere from several $100s to say tens of thousands that are perhaps more in reach of a, middle to upper middle class collector who's, working towards a goal. Those values are likely to be impacted for a while.
Yeah.
Because of that. But I think that you'll continue to see comics that are truly rare, have been desired for and coveted for decades. I think you'll continue to see those $1, $2, $3+ million sales. And I think that will also continue in the comics art market, which is also reflecting interest in the comics industry.
Crazy numbers in original art. I mean, and I'm one of those people, I look at it and I'm never jealous of the comics or the original art that sell for these crazy amounts of money. I mean, it honestly motivates me to work harder. I'm always like trying to figure out, how can I do more? What else can I do? How can I get that? I was doing some research just earlier today on Jeff Bezos, just because there's a lot of just, politics aside, right? Just a lot of really talented people that bust hump to make magic happen. And I don't begrudge any of these people buying really awesome comics for their collection. And I just want to be like them and I want to be their friend. That's all I'm going to say about that. So anyway, Doug, before I let you go here, brother, where can people get a hold of you on the social media should they want to reach out to you?
Best place to get me is on Instagram at doug.bratton, BRATTON.9.
And we're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Come to San Diego Comic-Con, booth numbers to be announced soon.
Doug, when you started to go down the path, I was like, "Ooh, is he going to drop booth numbers?" Because I don't know those.
I don't know. I'm waiting for you to tell me.
No, I don't even know him yet. So for those people that don't know, Doug and I are going to be in about 3 different booths at San Diego Comic-Con. We're going to be at the Short Box booth. We're going to be with Nerdy Girl and Sammy from Skeleton Key Comics on 2 different days. And then we're also going to be at the CGC booth on Sunday, signing copies of Isolation. Doug, I've had several people reach out to me asking about the cover F for Isolation, asking where they can actually get a copy of it. And I've encouraged people to make a friend, because there is no means or mechanism for people to get a copy of this comic outside of coming to San Diego Comic-Con. So I'm like, hey, here's a great opportunity to make a friend. And for those people that haven't seen it, here is the wonderful cover that will be released at San Diego Comic-Con, and if there are copies left over, will be available at additional Comic-Cons down the road. So look for us, more to come. We should be releasing hopefully dates and times here for San Diego at some point, but I think we're going to have booth activity on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday at the CGC booth. All right. So Doug,
as long as our planes land on Thursday.
Well, brother, I'm getting in a little earlier than you, Doug.
Oh, okay,
so,
good. You never know with what's going on with the airlines, right?
Oh no, we're going to clear all that out. We're going to clear all that out by the time San Diego comes around. I get in like pretty darn early on Saturday. I'm sorry, on Wednesday. On Wednesday.
Okay, that's good.
It's one of those days I get in early. All right, Doug, it's good to see you, brother, as always.
Take care, Reggie.
All right, cool. Who wants to be my friend? Steve, I respect it, brother. I'm telling you, cover F is amazing. Cover F really is amazing. I am super pumped about it. To be honest with you, I was a little sad. I was a little sad when Beth told me that she wasn't going to do it as a traditional piece, that it was just going to be line work and then digital. I was a little saddened by that, because I was really hopeful to have that amazing piece in my collection. But the cover turned out great, and I could not be more pleased with it. And also, I think the response that people are putting out there. Joe is asking for all kinds of information. He says, Doug, you have to have a New York Comic-Con exclusive cover for us on the East Coast. Joe, I mean, people try to get all kinds of information. I love this cover, but I will never have one. Here's the thing, Frog Brawler. there's always a secondary market. There is always time for you to make a friend, Frog Bro. It's good to see you, brother. All right, let me see, let me scroll through. Let me see. All right, I think I'm all caught up on the comments here. So one of the things that I remember from the heat of the pandemic, one of the things that I remember was a lot of people were pleased when comic shops and virtual sales started to pop up all over Instagram and Facebook, because it gave people, and also YouTube, these virtual sales that were done by dealers, by local comic shops, gave people an opportunity to still be able to pick up some really awesome books, especially when things were really shut down during the heart of the pandemic. And one thing that I remember from a lot of people was that folks were just antsy about cons starting back up. People could not wait to get back to cons because they believed that while the digital sales were cool, there were better opportunities to actually pick up awesome books face to face at cons. And so I personally have been to a couple of cons. I haven't really done a whole lot of shopping, to be honest with you. I've mostly gone to experience the con and to be there versus, or to work it, versus actually picking up some comics with deals. But I wanted to invite someone on the show that has been to some cons that can maybe help me to understand what the sentiment is out there in the market right now, at least as it relates to Comic-Con. And so I want to welcome to the show Dustin. Dustin, how you doing, brother?
All right, man. How about you?
Man, that is a good voice, Dustin.
I appreciate
Dustin,
it.
Two Brothers Comics. I didn't know you had such a great voice.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. I always think the same thing when I hear you talk.
It's my microphone. It's
okay.
actually your voice. It's my microphone. So if you get this mic, you're good to go, brother. But we had the pleasure of meeting each other at Heroes Con.
Yep. Yeah.
And,
that was cool.
and I remember, I think I saw something on Instagram where I saw multiple posts of you at cons, and I was like, you know what? Let me reach out to this guy. Let me reach out to him and see what trends he's seeing out there with cons. And so, Dustin, how many cons have you been to this year, if you had to put a number to it?
I think right now I'm up to 5, maybe 6. I've been to 3 in Atlanta. I went to Huntsville. So yeah, 6, Heroes and Lexington.
Okay. So you've been to a fair number of cons this year. And when we spoke yesterday, you mentioned that there are several trends that you're seeing out there. And one of the trends that you kind of spoke about was how the vendors are behaving at cons. Can you talk a little bit about what you have experienced or heard or seen at cons as it relates to the vendors that are working these booths?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you see several different types of vendors there. You have the vendors that carry the stuff that you dream about, and that's what these guys deal in, and they've got tons of it. Then you got the vendors that might have a mix of a little bit of everything, and then you have the vendors that carry more of the smaller keys and flip bins and stuff like that. And I really noticed that the vendors that have the smaller stuff with the flip bins, I've been seeing a lot of those. I mean, day one, everything on the wall, everything in the box is 20% off, 25% off right out the gate.
Wow.
You don't even have to go in there and haggle with them because everything's already marked down so much. But then when you find the vendors that have those monster key books, those real big blue chippers, those guys, they're standing tough, and it's because they know right now that's the big thing that's moving. And I actually Nick and I, when we're going around recording, we talk to a lot of the vendors, and I always ask them, how you guys doing? Is everything, you guys moving some stuff? You guys having a great show? And it's usually a mix. But the guys that are moving the big stuff, it's always like, yeah, man, we're doing, it's been a best show we've had so far. And we've got some friends that do a huge booth, and they were there at Lexington and at Heroes. And he pretty much said the same thing. And I even talked to him on the phone today just to pick his mind about a couple of things. And, you know, he told me that the biggest things that they're able to move right now is high 4-digit and 5-digit books are moving like crazy. They're, you know, constantly big time lawyers and doctors, and they've even had brokers, comic book brokers, coming in and buying these huge books, you know, for like 17 different people to take shares in and stuff. They're actually seeing that from these people, and they're having no problem moving that type of stuff. What they're having problems moving is the stuff that's running, you know, in the $600 to $700 and lower range. That's the stuff that people seem to be not really purchasing as much right now, from what I gathered from him, and you kind of see it too, because the way the market is right now, and Doug even really spoke to it, the way things are right now. I mean, if you're able to buy those type of books right now, it's because you're on that upper echelon level, as far as you know, your income and stuff, and so the inflation isn't going to really affect you quite as badly. And now is the perfect time for you to go in there and grab these big books, because everything isn't as expensive as it was last year. So you're looking at it like, you know, salivating at this point. Like, man, I can go grab this book right now. It's down 20%. Yeah, it's costing me 40,000, but it's not costing me 55,000. So you know,
if there's a bright side, you just hit it, brother. But I think, you know, what I had hoped was that these two connections would connect, right? These two conversations would connect to each other, and it sounds like they just did, because you just drew a line of demarcation, right, in terms of dollars, right? You have people that could get a $600 book maybe 6 months to a year from now, because their financial situation was very different, right? They weren't pumping $100 or $200 a week or whatever into their gas tank, so they could get a $600 book, right? Exactly. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, you have to your point, the lawyer, the doctor, the broker. They pump $100 a premium or so into their gas tank. It's not hurting as much, right? Nope. and maybe, to your point, they had been saving up, right, for some of these books, because they thought that they were going to continue that upward trajectory that we had been on for the last 2 years. And they had anticipated, to your point, paying $50,000. Now it's 40. And they're like, ooh, that's a smoking deal. Right. And so it's really interesting. Anytime we can take the theory of a conversation and see it play out in the real world. You know what I'm saying? Now, let me ask you this, Dustin. The dealers that are cutting the deals at the lower end of the spectrum, do you think that they are hurting financially, or is it more about, I need to sell some books to recover my cost for being here at this con, which is why they start the wheeling and dealing from day one? Or is it something else?
So some of them I've talked to, if they had a bad day one, they'll change things up on day two for sure. The couple that I saw at a couple different shows that from the right out the gate, you know, I talked to him and he was just like, you know, he's like, it's first couple cons that I've been back to and been able to get to, and, you know, having a whole year where I wasn't able to get out and really move this stuff. A lot of it has gone cold. Because you could see it was a lot of older spec stuff that was really hot at one point, and they had probably been gathering it up and getting it ready, and then boof, you know, cons are pulled out from underneath them. And you know, some of them were older guys, so I don't know that they really get into the online selling. I mean,
so they had just potentially just been sitting on inventory during this time.
Right. Yeah. I had one guy, he was, and there was another booth too, where there, you know, I'm looking at something and I'm like, and I don't even get to say no or anything. He's like, just make me an offer. Just, you know, make me an offer. And I'm like, man, I'm a hustler when I go to the cons. And if anybody's ever watched our channel, they know, like, I will go in there and try to hustle somebody down, you know, 50 cents on a $5 book if I can.
So you can feel good about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell them too, like, come on, man, come on, 50 cents just so I feel like I won. But But I mean, there's been several vendors where, they're just like, just make me an offer. And I'm like, man, why? Like, you didn't even give me a chance to say yes or no. And,
But do you feel guilty? Do you feel guilty?
I
Or
mean,
you're like, nah, I still need you to come down 50 cents?
so I've always looked at it like this. Nobody's going to sell something and lose money on it. So if you tell me yes, you're
Yep.
still making money.
Yep.
That's and that's the way I always look at
It
it.
may be a small amount of money, but you're
Right.
still making some money, right?
Right.
Which I think is a good thing. So again, there's a reason why I wanted you to come on here. So for those folks that are coming in a little late, we are sitting down talking with Dustin, Two Brothers Comics here on YouTube. I definitely encourage you guys to check him out. But he is a person that has hit several different cons, 5 or 6 cons over the course of this last year. He's given us a tremendous amount of insight into potentially how inflation is affecting the comic book dealers and vendors that are showing up at the shop, at the cons. You touched on something a few minutes ago. Brokers that are coming in and buying comics and selling fractional ownership in those comics. Now, I was aware that there were companies that were doing that, like Otis and Relay that were doing that. I was not aware that there were individuals that were doing that as well. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I honestly wasn't aware of it at the time either until he told me that. And he just said, a comic broker. And I was like, what is that? And he's like, well, the guy comes in and he'll buy, I think the guy came in and bought like a high grade X-Men 1. And he had 17 people that were going to take pieces of the pie. It was insured. And, I don't know all of the logistics of it, but he said that the guy had come and seen him before at another con as well. And I mean, he said he saw the guy walking around to different booths and everything too. So he wasn't sure how many books he bought at the con, but that was the second big one he had bought from them just inside of a year, because he had bought from them at Lexington a few months ago as well.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, again, I had heard of, and I've actually spoken to some of these companies, right? Companies that buy it, sell fractional shares, if you will, of the actual book. There are others that I've spoken with that will buy the book and they will convert it to an NFT, and then sell fractional shares of the NFT. Like, I talked to a lot of people behind the scenes, but I didn't know that it was more local than that. I want that gig,
right?
I want to go and I want to spend other people's money and hold their comic, because I think my wall would be all the better.
Oh yeah, for sure. And,
Could you imagine?
How much better does it get?
Could you imagine if that was your gig?
Yeah, that would be that would just be incredible, man. It's like eating your cake or having your cake and eating it too, almost. I mean,
no, it's like having your cake, eating it, and eating your buddy's cake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably a lot closer to what it is for sure.
Brother, that's amazing. I didn't know that such a thing existed. And again, that's one of the cool things about, I spoke to Neo, Rob, at Heroes as well. And one of the things that Rob said to me is that he loves going to cons, and this may resonate with you. He loves going to cons because he gets to take the temperature of the room and he gets to talk to people, and he likes to see what's going on. And I'm more of let me slide in and slide out, whereas I think you guys are going around talking to people. But that's a really cool thing that you were able to uncover simply by taking the time to talk to some of these dealers. And I think that that's great. You mentioned several different trends that you've been seeing as you've been going around. Are there any other trends that you want to highlight besides the ones that we've spoken about thus far?
So I know that I had originally mentioned crowd size. After doing some research on the actual numbers, I think my perception of the crowd sizes at the cons the bigger cons that I've been to anyway, may have been off. And I don't know if it was due to floor layout, because my perception was Lexington Comic-Con this year seemed a lot less crowded than last year in September. And that maybe, and Nick and I, we both thought, the attendance seemed like it was way down. However, after looking at it, they actually had a record year this year. But it was, I guess, changing the floor layout after I spoke to them about it. was able to basically just open up the aisles a little bit more, and they took in a couple of less vendors so that they could have more room.
Yep.
And he also said the fact that Kevin Eastman was signing downstairs with about 1,000 people in line for 8 hours made a big dent in the population on the floor as well.
Yep.
And Heroes Con, that was my first time there. And I didn't realize, and I don't know if you realize how big that place really is. But Lexington seemed huge to me. And Heroes Con, that venue was actually twice the size of Lexington Comic Con.
Wow.
And they set records at Heroes Con this year, all 3 days. So I was completely off whenever I spoke to you about that. But like I said, it was just the place was so big. And the layout, I guess, was completely different from years past, from what I understand. And it was just laid out so that they could keep the crowds a little more separated and keep people distanced a little more. So I guess that's why it seemed that way, because I was going to say, outside of what I've seen at MegaCon, which seemed like everybody was like this, like all over, that
Is
one's
that in
always
Florida?
huge. Yeah.
Florida's
And-
like honey badger.
Right.
Florida don't care, brother. Other places, they're like, let's take some precautions.
Right.
I'll be honest with you. It sounds like I would not have enjoyed MegaCon. I'll be honest with you. I don't like to be smashed upon, right?
Mhm.
Heroes Con was much more my jam.
Oh yeah.
And
I
I
loved it.
probably only saw a tiny sliver of Heroes Con, from the door to the Comic Clear booth to
Mhm.
where Sammy was. That was
Okay.
pretty much the only strip that I hit. I
Okay.
didn't really, and then I walked down to the CBCS booth. I walked down there because I was trying to meet with somebody. But that was pretty much it. I didn't see very much, but I'm glad you went back and looked at that and helped me to understand that comment. But there was a comment here from David Wong that I want to look at, that I want to address, because I think that it's an interesting one. I think the way that it works, David, is that they typically invest in these books and they buy them, dividing up the cost. They hold the book for a period of time, then they sell it, and then they divide up the proceeds. So they're probably not really comic book collectors versus people that are choosing to invest or speculate in comics, right? So it's probably not someone that wants to, like me, I just want to hang it on the wall.
Right.
They're doing it for the money. And is there something wrong with that? Everybody has to judge for themselves. But Dustin, would you agree with my evaluation and assessment of this, or would you change anything there?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah. So at least you get to hold it for a little bit, right?
Right. Right.
Here's
Yep.
the thing. If there are 17 of you out there right now that want to send me your money, I will buy the most fantastic copy of X-Men issue #1, and we will share it. It'll stay here, but I'll send you photos of it every single day, like
There you
your kid or your puppy at daycare. I'll hook it up. That's a sweet gig, man. I'm glad you told me about that. But any other trends? Because I think that the crowd thing that you mentioned was really good. One other thing that you said to me was you spoke about the fact that when you hit certain cons, you felt like you saw lots of copies of really big books.
Yeah.
Is that still an accurate statement?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I've never seen so many copies of Amazing Fantasy 15 as I did at Heroes.
Okay.
I mean, it was insane. It made the book seem like it's
Common.
not that hard. Like, it's not that hard to find. Like, I was like, man, like this. I hear people say, like, it, and in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't come up for sale as often as a lot of things do. You're going to get a chance at an X-Men 1 more times than AF-15. But when I was walking around that show, I'm like, man, like I can almost throw a rock and hit one, it seems like. And I mean, you were seeing not just like X-Men 1s and Fantastic Four 1s and Fantastic Four 5s, but I was seeing high grade copies. There were some booths that would have, a couple of graded copies of X-Men 1, and then they have like 5 or 6 raw copies. And that was the same thing that I saw at Lexington in September and this year. And it's just like, wow, man, it's crazy to see some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact that they are moving so well right now. I know my buddy Trey over at Dangerously Terrific Comics. They have a Batman #1, and it's a Green Label 7.0. And they had an offer of $165,000 cash. The guy was right there, give you cash. and they have it priced at 180, and he told them no,
That's
180 or you're not getting
crazy.
it.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, and the guy was like, he was just completely appalled that they wouldn't take it. But he said, that's probably the best offer we've had on that book.
He's like,
And I
he's like,
mean,
I'm gonna take my $160,000
right,
home.
right, and I've never seen a Captain America #1 in person. I got to see one of those in person. There was a Captain America 100 9.9 at Heroes Con. So I mean, yeah,
That's
I've
crazy.
definitely seen a lot of the higher grade and heavier tier books,
Yeah.
and even some books that might not be like quite as heavy tier, but just harder to find stuff. I bet I saw 15 high grade copies of The Crow issue #1,
Yeah.
and that's not one you see all the time.
That is not an easy book to find. Shout
Yeah,
out to Ninth Wonder here. He's basically saying Denver was super packed as well, probably worse than MegaCon. Got some crazy deals on books despite the crowd. That's what's up. Thank you for the super chat, brother. Definitely appreciate that. You know what's interesting, Dustin, is I'm curious. Did you see a lot of Hulk ones and ASM ones? Because I've been to cons and I've seen a ton of AF-15s, right?
right.
I typically do not see a lot of Hulk one or ASM one. Those seem to be a little harder. But again, I haven't been to as many cons as you have. So I'm curious what you've observed.
I know my buddy Trey, when at their booth, they have one Hulk one. They had two, and another friend of mine that lives local, they actually bought one of them, and now they've got it at their booth. So I've seen two Hulk ones, but I mean, I know the guys, and so I know they have them.
Yeah.
But Amazing Spider-Man #1, I've seen a bunch of those lately because I'm on the lookout for Nick for one. That's one
Okay.
he's looking for. So I'm specifically always checking for that one. So I did see several of those at Lexington. There was probably 3 or 4 of them at Huntsville that I looked at for Nick. And then at Heroes, I mean, there was, I think one guy had like 6 copies at Heroes just at his booth alone. So
That's ridiculous.
um,
That's just ridiculous.
yeah, and so it's crazy to see these big huge keys being readily available, but it seems like people are being a lot more picky, I guess, with what they're purchasing at any level.
Mhm.
As where last year, it seemed like everything was moving, didn't matter what it was.
You put a book
Um,
up, that book's selling.
yeah,
And
and I
it started to slow down in October.
mhm,
That's when I noticed the slowdown, and that's when I started creating videos about the slowdown and a correction
right,
because I personally like I could put a 6 books up today
mhm,
and everyone would sell before the end of the day. In
right,
October, it started to change,
mhm,
and so I definitely get that now people are starting to be a little more prudent with how they're spending their money, and I don't necessarily see that as being a bad thing. So
no,
for those folks that are coming in a little late, I'm sitting here talking with Dustin from Two Brothers Comics. We are having a conversation about trends that he has observed at the various cons that he's attended over the course of this last year. I am very thankful that you go to so many cons because I get the benefit from your experience, and we'll probably have to have you come back on to spend a little bit more time talking about maybe what you observe in the second half of the year. Now that we're in the July timeframe.
sure.
But brother, as we get ready to wrap up here, where can people get a hold of you on social media? I know that you have a YouTube channel, so if you want to shout out all that stuff, have at it.
Yep, Two Brothers Comics here on YouTube. You can type us in the search engine there. You'll find us. Google, whichever you prefer. We are on Instagram at the number Two Brothers Comics, and we also are on Facebook in the same way. So you guys can find us on there. And I think Nick has actually got us on Twitter now. So you guys can follow us on all those platforms. Just disregard all of my brothers' just goofy hot takes that he puts on the Instagram there. He's just trying to get people to get a rile out of people. So you guys just give him a hard time about that.
I do love the Instagram machine, not so much the Twitters, not so
Yeah,
much the
yeah.
Twitters. I'm
I
just
don't even I don't think I've ever been on Twitter, so
Yeah, I try. I get in there maybe once a week. It's not my jam, but
Yeah.
Instagram is definitely the thing. So again, brother, thank you for coming on, man. It was awesome meeting you face to face, and it's also nice to spend some time talking with you here on the channel. So I want to thank you for making yourself available. Hope you enjoyed yourself. But I appreciate you bringing your insights to the conversation and layering on what Doug mentioned earlier today. So thank you for that.
absolutely, man. I appreciate you thinking of me. It was a good time. Glad to hang out.
All right, brother. We'll have you back. Take care.
All right, thanks.
All right, Dustin from Two Brothers Comics. Definitely appreciate him coming on. So I'm walking at Heroes Con, and I'm kind of on a DL. Like I try to slide in, even though I had on a shirt that had my name on. I'm sliding through, and I hear Regie, and I'm like, did someone just yell my name? I turn around, it was Dustin. So I walk up and I'm like, how you doing, brother? And he's I didn't know if that was really you. So I wanted to shout it from afar away to see if it was you. And if it wasn't, then it wouldn't be a big deal. So I'm like, I got a chuckle out of that. Awesome guy. It is one of the cool things of going to the cons is I had an opportunity to meet so many people face to face. And I think that that's a really cool experience. I'm actually looking forward to that at San Diego Comic-Con. It's my understanding that San Diego Comic-Con is a little more bumper to bumper. At least it has been in years past. So we'll see how much I'm able to move around while we are there. But I definitely want to encourage you guys to stay tuned because we will be releasing our schedule for San Diego Comic-Con. Doug and I will be making the rounds there for several days, meeting folks, hopefully signing some books and making books available, copies of Isolation, that is. And so with that, we are actually going to wrap up. Let me see if I can find my note. I think I have a note somewhere around here. I do not. I do have one additional video that is going to be coming out this week, tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Already this week, we have released a couple of videos that if you have not seen them, I definitely want to encourage you to check them out. One of the videos is do not buy these books. These are books that have still high values and high prices that I don't think people should buy right now. But the second video I released is a snag these books. This is a video in which I highlight books that have seen their prices and values decline, and potentially now could be the time to pick those books up, especially if you've been waiting for a period of time, waiting for the right opportunity to pick up your Grail or your preferred key. I highlight those types of books in the second video that again was released this week. So a couple of really cool videos already this week and one additional dropping tomorrow along with the podcast. All right. And as a reminder, this live stream that you just listened to or possibly watching on replay right now is available on your preferred podcasting platform while you're out doing yard work or working out or whatever it happens to be. Take some Regie on the go. All right. With that said, if you guys need to reach out to me, feel free to do so on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.
My body ate itself until it found its passion. They got fat while we starved, but it's power in fasting. Until I turn to ashes, I remain stoic through my rap heroics. I painted 10,000 poems, then I drank the potion of poetry and motion. I started choking, it was potent. My throat chakra downloaded, knowledge hungry. I was embarrassed I could ask my parents for money when I had a full tummy. So I asked for wisdom, better than crypto, sweeter than honey. I don't take it for granted, I don't wear capes and masks.